What up, sports fans? Waxon Wednesday, Waxman, Tom Level, let two guys talk sports. Let's rock and roll. I'm going to start off today's episode with a whole lot of auto racing talk. We're going to start with the IndyCar series. Okay, maybe not the most exciting IndyCar season out there. I mean, we got Alex Palou, who's won not once, not twice, not thrice, but 8 times. 8 times this season. And I've been watching these races, and alright. So, admittedly, I'm not the biggest Alex Palou fan, but with that being said, what he is doing this season just off the charts impressive. I mean, winning 8 races in any racing series, whether it's NASCAR or Formula One or even IndyCar, is difficult. Because the competition across all these motorsports, it's deep. And especially IMSA, it's difficult to win 8 times in a season. And the fact that Alex Palou has won 8 times is wow. And kudos to him. He's doing... Yes, you can make the case he's got the best team behind him. And Chip Ganassi Racing has a great crew chief. But you know what? Palou does not make a whole lot of mistakes. And he's you know, and it's not like he's won... Every race he's won this season has been from the pole. He's been able to come through the field at times. Especially the Indy 500. He did not start off... I mean, granted, he started close to the front row in the Indy 500. But still, I found a way to win that race from where he was starting from. And... he's won at all kinds of different circuits, too, which is just as impressive. You know what? Just hand him the championship. Okay? He's already got, at this point, the closest competitor to Alex Palou, which is who is Patricio Award, is trailing by about around 130 points. All right? And there's only 3 races left. You might as well just give him the championship. All right? Just say he's clinched it already. All right? Run your 3 races, but... What, and you know what? Regardless of what, here's the thing, okay? Let's have some respect, and let's just enjoy that. Try our best to enjoy this, because not many IndyCar drivers could say they've done something like this. And I mean, and here's another thing. Alex Palou, in addition, okay, so he's got the Astor Cup's going to be all his. There's no question about that. I mean, if he wins the next race, he's clinched the championship for good. But bigger than that, he's got a chance to make bigger history. He's got a chance to win, I believe, 10 races this season, even 11. He could surpass legends like, I believe AJ Foyt for the most wins in the season. I think the most wins in the season in IndyCar is somewhere, I believe it's 9. It could be 10. I could be wrong. But if Palou were to win again this upcoming week, he would tie AJ Foyt. And then 10, he'd surpass him for the most wins of the season. So 9, I think, is the most wins any IndyCar driver has had in a season. And that's... Keep in mind, this series only runs about 16 to 17 races each and every season. So, crazy impressive. No matter what you think of Alex Palou, let's show some respect to what he's done this season. Because this season, absolutely dominant. And you know what? He takes care of that race car, but he also pushes when he needs to, and they call him the surgeon for a reason, because his performances are surgical. He doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes, and he makes precise movements when he needs to. Case in point, the Indy 500. He passed Marcus Ericsson when he needed to, and ended up winning that race. So with that being said, what Alex Palou has accomplished this season, just none short of incredible. Now, of course, he hasn't clinched the title yet, but I have no doubt he's going to win it. Just start the next 3 races, finish, say podium in all 3, or even just top 10 in all 3 championships, as good as his. Simple as that. But kudos to Alex Palou for what he's doing this season. No, seriously, kudos to him. Historical stuff that we are witnessing in IndyCar right now. And Alex Palou, he's going to be racing for a long time. That's not good news for the rest of the IndyCar field. Shifting gears now to NASCAR. I never thought I'd find myself talking a lot about NASCAR, but, man, one week or another, it feels like there's some story. Last week it was with, some radio show on Sirius XM calling out Mark Martin or Denny Hamlin. The next, we got this is, I think, the 3rd time in the next-gen era that this has happened. But we got another driver just absolutely losing his mind, losing his cool, and intentionally wrecking somebody to win a race. So if you guys haven't watched the replay, so this was during the Xfinity race at historic Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Austin Hill, who was leading the race, he he was under pressure also. So Austin Hill, leading the race at the time in the 21 car, he was under pressure from Eric Almirola driving the 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing. And he and Almirola just slightly made contact with him. Hill's car got loose. And then, no doubt about this in my mind, you watch what happened. Austin Hill just swerved that car to the left and just intentionally took out Eric Almirola, put him in the fence, and almost caused an even bigger crash. Caution came out, and of course he was parked for the finish of this race, and was seen later on having a temper tantrum on the radio, saying, saying F NASCAR and that, and hey, here's the thing. Here's how I feel about it. So NASCAR, of course, didn't like what they did. In addition to parking him for the race, they have also parked him for this weekend. So Austin Hill suspended one race for intentionally dumping Eric Almirola. And in addition to that, they took away his playoff credentials for the Xfinity Series. So all the wins that he has and all the playoff points that he has, he's lost that. He's been stripped of the playoff points after doing something like that. That's different. I don't think I've ever really seen NASCAR do that, per se, in the history in their top series. But look, sometimes I will say this. I've agreed with Austin Hill in the past, like F NASCAR. I have said that myself too, because the sanctioning body does not always make the right decisions or the ones that I think they should be making. But you know what? In this case, NASCAR made the right decision. All right, no doubt about it. Watching the replay, he intentionally took out Eric Almirola, put him in the fence. And by the way, I heard Almirola crashed where there was no safer barrier, which that puts a driver at an even huger risk. And it's at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is a very fast track. So we've seen kind of a spike in incidents where a driver just intentionally dumps another driver because of one slight contact. Austin Hill and Tyler Lavalette, I'm sorry to say this, but Austin Hill pulled a Chase Elliott, all right? Slight contact. Of course, big difference was Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin weren't racing for the lead. And, of course, this was for the lead. But regardless of racing position, you just don't go out and dump somebody. You just don't go and just... Especially at a high-speed track, because that's dangerous. I mean, and, of course, there's also the Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson incident that comes to mind. And also the Kenza versus Logano incident from Martinsville in 2015, about 10 years ago. That comes to mind as well. Of course, Kenza, big difference was between those four incidences. Kenza's suspension was 2 races, while the driver of the other 3 who initiated the whole contact was only suspended 1 race. And some of those instances, I thought, okay, 2 races, because you suspended Kenza for 2 races, while the other drivers. Of course, that's just me. Not thinking too much heavily on it. Not mad about it. Just pointing something out there. But look, the suspension was warranted. You just do not. It's one thing to trade paint and rubbing his racing, but look, if you're gonna wreck somebody, you gotta make it look like it's not intentional. Like if you're better off driving into the back bumper of them, as opposed to just swerving to the right and just taking them out. Look, when you do something like that what Austin Hill did, you look like you're throwing a temper tantrum. You're frustrated. Of course, if he had seen the replay, he would have seen that Almirola just barely got into him, and he did a great job saving the car and could have also. It's not smart driving by Austin Hill, because he could have still gotten a really good finish out of it and still gotten some more points towards the playoffs. And instead, he threw that race away and may have thrown his season away just like that, because he's not only getting that 1 race suspension, but he's lost all his playoff points. Whew. So, but I agree with NASCAR's decision to suspend him. Now, taking the playoff points, you could say that's justified in a way. I mean, I'm not sure 100% how I feel about it, but for now I will say probably warranted considering the circumstances, especially at a high-speed track. But it's not the biggest deal for me. Like, biggest thing is being consistent across the board, and you know what? We've seen instances like with Kyle Larson, Bubba Wallace, and then, of course, Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin. Both Wallace and Elliott were suspended, and I thought both of them should have been suspended for what they did, and they both were. So NASCAR is keeping their consistency here. Good decision. It's the right call. He had to be suspended. Take a week off. Cool off. Think heavily about what you just did, because Austin Hill may have just thrown away his season in the Xfinity Series. And I don't know much about Austin Hill. I've just heard. But, look. Not going to say he's a good guy or a bad guy, because like I said, I don't know anything about him, but when you wreck someone intentionally like that, and especially let alone at a very dangerous racetrack, you know, and this wasn't Martinsville we're talking about, okay? This is Indianapolis, very fast track. When you take someone else out and put them and their car goes into the wall, and at a point in the wall where the driver could get hurt, that's dangerous. All right, there's a fine line between the payback and of course, and just flat out dumping someone because you don't like the way they race, or you don't like the fact that they just slightly got into you. So that's how I feel about it. NASCAR made the right decision there, and I will say this: Austin Hill he's gonna have to think a lot about how he's gonna finish the rest of the season because he lost all those playoff points. He's gonna have to, again, not a big fan of the playoffs. All right, but there's a point. I like hard racing. I don't mind contact in NASCAR, but hey, there comes a point where, you know what, you got to draw the line. And I will also say this. I'm a Matt Kenseth fan. I was a Matt Kenseth fan in those days, and you know what? But NASCAR was right to suspend him. Of course, granted, I wouldn't have done it for 2 races, but NASCAR had a point in suspending Kenseth. It was to... And even though that took place at Martinsville, NASCAR made the right decision, sadly. I will give them that. But the thing is, hey, yes, you can be aggressive at NASCAR, but just don't dump people, all right? Don't put other drivers' lives in danger just because you're upset because someone accidentally got into you and they're just hard racing, all right? These things happen. And that's where I stand. That's my thought on these subjects. Look, I'm sure Austin Hill, I get his frustration with NASCAR in a way, but with that being said, can't dump people like that. You know, if you're gonna dump somebody in NASCAR, do the best you can to make it look like it's not intentional. Simple as that. If you're gonna do something, I've heard of payback in NASCAR, and that's a part of the sport. But this was not the time to do that. He did it intentionally, and Austin Hill intentionally dumped Eric Almirola, and NASCAR caught him doing that. And if you watch the replay, you can see his hands turning to the... And he said he was getting loose in that corner. Well, by the time he went and veered his car to the left to hit Almirola, clearly looked like he was already well in control, or back in control of his race car, and he wasn't loose anymore at that point. So that's another point that proves that he intentionally dumped Almirola. But these are just my thoughts on the incident. So the incident, it was an intentional act, and NASCAR was right to suspend the driver of the 21 for the incident. That's where I leave this subject. All right. And speaking of, okay, shifting gears to another sport. Guess what, sports fans? You're not going to believe what's going on this week. You are seriously not going to believe what's going on in these dog days of summer. Football is back. What, did you say football? Yep, that's right. Albeit it's preseason football for the NFL, but the Hall of Fame game is this Thursday, or that's tomorrow. So we're nearing the end of the sports off season, sports fans, and this is the first sign of it, the NFL Hall of Fame game. So it's the first preseason game of the season every year. 2 different teams each year. This year it'll be between the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Chargers. So just some things to keep an eye out for. Remember, the games don't count. The game doesn't count towards anyone's record in the regular season because it's preseason. And here's one other thing to keep in mind. I don't believe any of the starters are playing in this game. Not at all. What I believe is going to happen is this is going to be pretty much tryouts for both of these two teams. For any aspiring prospect out of college who wants to make an NFL team, whether they got drafted or not. This is their chance to really make an impact. And it starts here. And you know what? The journey towards the Super Bowl, you could say, starts here in Canton for both of these two teams. I mean, nice way to start a new NFL season. You got the Hall of Fame class that is being enshrined, and then they'll have their speeches the following day after the game. But get some experience of football before the big day for the new inductees of the NFL or the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But big thing to look out for is, this is tryouts. Who's going to shine for both the Lions and what new name is going to shine for both the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Chargers, And could this be a name that ends up shining in the regular season as well? One never knows. There's always someone that in the preseason that has a breakout, and then they end up going on and doing something in the NFL regular season, maybe even beyond. Question is, will that person be, or will that football player be in this game, the Hall of Fame game between Detroit and Los Angeles? Time will tell. And, all right, I do want to talk about my Bears, but that's going to be a subject for another time. So just, again, final reminder, don't worry about the starters playing in this game. Worry more about what to expect. Worry in terms of what to expect. Worry more about some of the prospects or free agent signings that did not get, or players that did not get drafted. Keep an eye on them. All right, this is pretty much this NFL Hall, the Pro Football Hall of Fame game. It's more of a tryouts, if anything, for the two teams partaking in it between Detroit and LA, the Chargers, of course. So who knows? So Detroit fans, maybe there's a name here that might just have a breakout in the preseason and may end up going on to do great things in the regular season for you. That's something to keep an eye out. Who's going to be, if there's a guy on the field in this game, who's it going to be for Detroit or Los Angeles? Time will tell, but sports fans, enjoy preseason football. We're nearing the end of the off season and the dog days of summer. All right, on to this day in sports history, and on this day, the 30th of July, 1874. That's right, we're going deep in the history, sports history. 1874. Boston and Philadelphia are the first baseball teams to play outside the U.S. in the British Isles. All right, sports fans, just want to give you a quick reminder. There will be no Waxon Wednesday this upcoming week, and there will be a Friday roundtable this week, but the next two, very unlikely, like the next two Fridays after this Friday, they're very unlikely there will be a Friday roundtable because I will be out of town. I'm around both those Fridays. Going fishing this upcoming week with my brother and my uncle in Alabama, and then I got a birthday party to go to the following week. So just want to give you the quick heads up there. So there will be no Wax on Wednesday this upcoming week, and probably no Friday roundtable this upcoming week since I will be in Alabama. The rest, still kind of up in the air. So just want to give you the heads up there, sports fans. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this week's Wax on Wednesday. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting the channel. Me and Tyler greatly appreciate it. I'll see you all for Friday roundtable with my man Tyler Lavalette this upcoming Friday. Now, just reminder, this Friday there will be a Friday roundtable, but the next Friday, highly unlikely there will be a Friday roundtable. With that now being said, this is Jay Waxman from Two Guys Talk Sports, signing off.